Um, Thank you very much for your patience and staying back after the first briefing. We are grateful to you for staying on for what is the next briefing that we have, and that is on the visit of Premier Li Keqiang to India. As we've announced previously, Premier Li Keqiang has decided to make India the first stop of his first foreign tour that he is embarking upon. And we think very highly of this gesture because it is our view that high-level political exchanges between our two countries are an important aspect and vehicle for our expanded cooperation. The object of such visits and meetings is to enhance trust and understanding between our two governments and our people, as well as to exhibit sensitivity to each other's concerns. As far as China is concerned, it is a very important country, and India places priority to our relations with China. We are both ancient civilizations, the most populous countries in the world, and our economies are growing rapidly. And we feel that the relationship between India and China is one of the most important in the 21st century. We need to carefully nurture our growing partnership, whose significance is not only in the bilateral dimension, but also increasingly has a global nature. We've shared with you details of the Premier's visit, but I will just add some elements to what we've shared before. He is arriving tomorrow at 3:20 p.m., following which in the evening there is a restricted meeting with the Prime Minister, and subsequently Prime Minister is hosting a dinner for the Chinese Premier. The next day, the more formal occasion is the formal reception and welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is at 9 o'clock in the morning. It is followed by the usual homage that visiting dignitaries pay to the father of the nation, and that is at 9:30 at Rajghat. And again, it's normal for a state visit that the External Affairs Minister usually is amongst the first to call on the visiting dignitary, and the External Affairs Minister, Shri Salman Khurshid, will call on the visiting dignitary at 10:15. After that, at 11:30, there will be delegation level talks at the Hyderabad House, following which we will have some agreements to be signed, and these will be signed at 12:30. There is also an event in terms of media statements by the two leaders, and then Prime Minister will host a banquet lunch for the visiting dignitary and his delegation and other important persons. In the afternoon, again, in accordance with the norms of state visits, the leader of the opposition will call on the visiting dignitary. He will also have a meeting with the chairperson of the UPA and will call on the Vice President of India. On 21st May, that is the day after that, he will address university students at a function organized by the ICWA along with other collaborators, and this is at 10:30 at the Taj Palace Hotel, and I understand that we have indicated to all of you what is the process by which you can attend that function if you so desire. Subsequent to that, he will call on the President of India at 12 noon at Rashtrapati Bhavan, and then depart for Mumbai. In Mumbai, he would be visiting the Tata Consultancy Services around 3:30. and will meet the relatives of Dr. Kotnis at his, where the visiting dignitary is staying, and that is at the Hotel Taj Mahal at about 5:45. Subsequent to that, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra will call on him, and at 7 o'clock he will meet chief executives of leading Indian business houses at a function and dinner which is being arranged by the ASSOCHAM, CII and FICCI, all the three apex chambers of commerce. The next day, that is the 22nd, the Premier will depart. And I think this is the expanse of our interactions. Subsequent to this briefing, we will put these details out in the public domain, and these will be available on our website along with clear instructions of what are the media opportunities, photo opportunities, etc. And you are welcome. All those of you who have PIB cards are welcome for these interactions or events. I think having given you the process, I now have with me Mr. Gautam Bambawale, who is Joint Secretary East Asia, who also handles China and he is well known to all of you. Any of you who would like to ask him any questions on any of the substantive issues, you're welcome to do so. Yes. Yes, Ranjit?
China has proposed a border defense cooperation agreement with India. So any forward movement on that?
That's a subject which is being discussed between the two governments, and it will continue to be discussed, including during this visit. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Nilova? Anyone who hasn't asked before? Yes, Subhajit.
Sir, understand that the Border Defense Cooperation Agreement has proposed that the troop levels should be frozen at the border, and it aims to curb the military plans that we have. What are our views on that?
See, this is an agreement, an intergovernmental agreement, which is currently being negotiated. So obviously I can't say anything about it because this is a process which is on. Whenever the agreement is finalized and when it's signed, you will get to know the details of the agreement. But right now I can't say anything because it's a work in progress. We're actually negotiating it with the Chinese and they're negotiating it with us. So I think I'll have to just say these words and stop there.
Ashwini?
This meeting in Bombay with the CEOs, are there any agreements or anything that are likely to be signed? And can you just give us some kind of feel as to who all would be present at that meeting?
Well, you're right. There is the standard meeting that our chambers of commerce hold for any visiting dignitary, any prime minister, president from any country. This one is being done in Mumbai. I think the Chinese side thought that they should do the economic meeting in Mumbai. So I'm afraid I don't know who will be attending from our side, from the chambers of commerce and industry. But there are some agreements, commercial agreements, which are to be signed between firms and business entities of the two sides. I believe that is to be done before this particular event at 7 o'clock in Mumbai starts. So I would refer you to ASSOCHAM, which is the lead organization for this particular meeting. They will have greater details of the agreements and the contracts which are to be signed between Indian and Chinese companies.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask if the coincidence in New Delhi of the Chinese Prime Minister and the President of Afghanistan will give any particular opportunity to some contact or discussion in the day of 20th of May.
Yeah, maybe I'll just answer you on the process. I think you didn't listen to my briefing related to Afghanistan. I said that the Afghan president lands here, his interactions here start on the 21st in the evening. But you can ask on the substance issue.
No, I think on the substance, I'd only like to draw your attention to the fact that India and China have, in various ways, been discussing the the future of Afghanistan as we move forward. We have done this bilaterally. I think all of you know that our additional secretary for Afghanistan visited Beijing a few weeks ago and had our first round of bilateral discussions with the Chinese. It's also been discussed at the NSA's level trilaterally in Russia. So Russia, China and India have been discussing this subject with the idea of giving all support to the Afghan government as we make this transition in 2014.
Nilova?
Gautam, I've seen this figure of 35 billion in investments from China towards infrastructure in India. Is that an accurate figure?
Well, I think you have to, that's the figure, or actually the figure is 55 billion. This is the amount of project contracting that Chinese companies have in India. It's the amount of projects that they're either completed or they're completing, that's in the pipeline in India. So it's not investment in terms of foreign direct investment. It's not in terms of setting up factories or units here. It's projects which Chinese companies are doing in India, including in many sectors as well as the infrastructure sector.
Smita?
Gautam, given the fact that we are still not looking at a possibility of exchanging maps on the eastern and western sector, the border defense cooperation is still a work in progress. What are the chances that a recurrence like Ladakh incident might actually impact bilateral relations again? How do you intend to flag it off in the meeting? And is there also a feeling that because the telecom sector issues for Chinese companies have not been sorted out yet completely, they might be holding it as far as opening up the Indian exports in pharmaceutical and IT-enabled services are concerned?
Shall I take the first question? Let me answer the first question first and then come to the second question of telecom, etc. I think, what is going to be discussed between the two prime ministers is something that even I am not aware of. Both the prime ministers, everything is on the table when two prime ministers of any two countries meet, and definitely that's true even of the prime ministers of India and China. Having said that, I think the two prime ministers would talk about this subject since it's been a recent occurrence. But I don't want to try to predict what is going to happen. We'll see what comes out of their meeting. And of course, all of you will be briefed on it by our Joint Secretary for External Publicity after the meetings of the Prime Ministers have taken place. So let's see, it's still something that we will look forward to as we move ahead, and we'll be able to brief you about the outcomes of what the Prime Ministers discussed only after the meeting has taken place. And we will do that as soon as possible after the meeting is over on Monday, the 20th of May. Second one, can you just repeat what was the gist of the question on telecom?
Since we still have issues as far as the Chinese telecom sector, their entry into the telecom sector is concerned, Huawei and the other companies, is there a feeling that they might be holding up increased exports in pharmaceutical for India, IT-enabled services?
No, I think we will continue to press on market access in China for Indian companies, whether it is in the pharmaceutical sector or whether it's in the IT sector. We'll continue to press for that, and we hope to see results very soon. In fact, I can even mention that the reason that the Chinese premier is visiting Tata Consultancy Services in Mumbai is because TCS has had some success in penetrating the Chinese market, especially over the last 2-3 years. They have adjusted their business model. They have a special business model for China, which is different from what it is for the Western countries, including the United States. And I think they've been successful in getting contracts in China. That's one of the reasons he's visiting TCS, but I'm sure TCS themselves will be in a position to explain better to you what their model in China is.
So just want to know if India's cooperation with Southeast Asian countries, especially Vietnam and Taiwan, would these things figure in the talks between the two prime ministers?
No, as I said, I really can't predict what will figure and what will not figure, but every subject under the sun is on the table. The two prime ministers are free to talk about anything that they would like. Whether it is actually discussed, we'll brief you after the talks are over on Monday.
Srinjoy? Yeah,
So-
sorry. Your choice to come or not, please. Yeah.
So you said that in Bombay, the Chinese Prime Minister, Premier, will have time to meet all the chief executives of the business and senior members of the business community. Will he have time to meet survivors of those of 26/11 or members of their family, or people who died, since he's also going to be at that hotel? And since there is a precedence with this, I think other senior leaders have done that in the past. Is this something India suggested to the Chinese? And as to just take off from where that question on telecom happened.
One question, please.
Yeah, I know, but
yes,
two
one
then.
question. No, that she just. Please, let's follow a norm that we all abide by. We will work that out separately. Now, as you know, we've explained to you the entire expanse of our of his program here. If you have any suggestions to make that, I think these are matters which are discussed in advance between the two sides and worked out based on mutual agreement. We've explained to you what those are. If you have any other suggestions to make in this regard, I would suggest you make them through appropriate channels, either with the Chinese mission or through our protocol. What we are providing to you is what is the agreed program here. I've already explained to you, and I will put it out in the public domain what is his program here. Vikas?
Is India raising the issue of Chinese activity in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir? And in the same context, is Shaksgam on the table, or is this...
One question.
I can only repeat what I've said earlier, that everything's on the table, and what will be discussed, I cannot predict. The prime ministers of the two countries will decide, and we'll brief you after the event is over, after the meetings are over. You can be sure of that. We'll do an early briefing, as I was mentioning, and I hope that the Joint Secretary External Publicity will organize something on Monday itself.
I think we are now getting into a repetition of questions, but I will permit, yes, one last question on this. Yes.
Thank you very much. So Bambara, you say everything will be on the table. So what do you think? China side will raise the Dalai Lama's so-called anti-China activities? What do you think? What will be the India's response if they so?
No, I'm afraid I have to repeat what I said. It's all on the table. And whether it's discussed or not, we'll tell you after the event is over, after the meeting is over between the two prime ministers.
I think it bears my contention that we are repeating the questions and the answers, and so our suggestion is that once the meeting is over, we will have a briefing for all of you, and we will provide you information of what were the issues that were discussed. It is premature on our part to preempt what the prime ministers will discuss, and as he said, everything is available on the table, nothing is off the table. So with that takeaway, may I thank you all for being here. Thank you very much.